Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes in life, we believe that the things outside of us hold no power. But the truth is, even the smallest choices we make are shaping the person we are becoming. A color is not just a color. It is a vibration. It is an energy. And when we surround ourselves with it, when we wear it, when we allow it into our lives, we are also allowing what it represents to enter into our mind, our spirit, and our future. Today, I am here to share with you why there is one color you must be careful with. It's because it is not only draining your energy, it is silently keeping you poor. Everything in existence is vibrating. Every object, every living being, every thought that arises in the mind, all carry their own frequency. Some vibrations are high, lifting us, opening us, allowing us to experience expansion. Some are low, pulling us down, closing us off, keeping us locked inside a cycle of struggle. When we speak about color, we are not simply describing something that pleases the eyes. We are speaking about a manifestation of vibration that communicates directly with the body, the mind, and the soul. Colors carry messages, even if we do not consciously listen. When you walk into a room painted in bright, vibrant shades, you feel uplifted without thinking. When you step into a dark, dull space, you feel your energy contracting before any words are spoken. This is not coincidence. It is the subtle influence of vibration. The body knows, the mind knows, even if the rational part of you does not understand. Think about nature. The blue of the sky expands your vision, the green of the trees soothes your nervous system, the golden light of the sun awakens something alive inside you. These are not random associations. These are ancient, universal responses. Nature has always been the greatest teacher of vibration, and colors are its language. If the sky were gray forever, if the earth carried no color, your spirit would feel imprisoned. It is proof that color has the power to nourish or to deplete, to energize or to suppress. Now bring this understanding closer to daily life. The clothes you wear are not just fabric stitched together. They are frequencies you carry with you throughout the day. The colors in your home are not just decoration. They are energies you are bathing in for hours, influencing your emotions and thoughts. The objects you surround yourself with are constantly speaking to your subconscious, telling it either to grow or to shrink, to reach higher or to stay low. Vibration is not neutral. It always moves you in a direction. If you choose unconsciously, you may end up surrounded by vibrations that keep you in stagnation. If you choose consciously, you can align yourself with vibrations that lift you toward prosperity, clarity, and inner strength. And this is where destiny is shaped. Destiny is not an accident. It is the outcome of repeated choices, repeated patterns, repeated vibrations. Each time you expose yourself to a color, you are reinforcing a certain frequency in your life. Over time, this frequency becomes normal, it becomes familiar, and it shapes your reality. The mind, without awareness, becomes a prisoner of this repetition. You feel poor not only because of lack in the outside world, but because you are vibrating on the frequency of lack inside yourself. The ancient traditions understood this. They knew that colors were not simply for beauty but for alignment. They painted temples in specific shades not for decoration but for energy. They dressed in certain colors during rituals not for fashion but for transformation. They respected the subtle influence because they recognized that to shift vibration is to shift destiny itself. When you begin to see color as vibrations, you also begin to see your environment as a mirror of your inner state. If you constantly live with colors that drain your spirit, you unconsciously teach yourself to accept less, to feel less, to expect less. It is like eating food with no nourishment. Eventually, the body weakens. Living with colors that are low in vibration weakens your spirit in the same way. And a weak spirit cannot create abundance, cannot attract prosperity, cannot sustain success. But when you surround yourself with colors that elevate, your vibration rises. The body feels lighter, the mind feels sharper, the spirit feels more open. And when your vibration rises, your actions follow. You walk differently, you speak differently, you choose differently. Over time, these new choices accumulate, and what once seemed impossible now becomes natural. This is how destiny is rewritten. Through vibration first, through action second, and through manifestation third. Color is the first step in this process because it is always present. You cannot avoid seeing. You cannot avoid absorbing. It is around you every moment of every day. This is why awareness is essential. Without it, you are unconsciously feeding yourself vibrations that keep you locked in limitation. With it, you can deliberately create an environment that supports the life you wish to live. Color influences vibration, and vibration influences destiny. When you begin to see this truth not just as a poetic thought, but as a practical reality, you will realize that what surrounds you is not random decoration. It is the silent architect of your future. The choices you make about color are not superficial. They are foundational. They are shaping the frequency that either leads you toward expansion or holds you back in contraction. And once you understand this, you will never look at a single color the same way again. When people think of poverty, the first image that often comes to mind is the lack of money, the lack of food, the lack of resources. But this is only one side of the truth. The deeper form of poverty begins long before the absence of wealth in the outer world. It begins as an invisible condition of the inner world. It begins with thoughts that are rooted in limitation, beliefs that whisper that nothing greater is possible, habits that keep a person small even when the world around them offers opportunities to expand. Poverty in the external world is a reflection of this inner state. Without changing the mind, no amount of money will change the reality for long, because the mind will always recreate the condition it believes is normal. The mind is the soil in which all actions grow. If the soil is rich, filled with belief, confidence, and clarity, then the seeds of effort blossom into abundance. If the soil is poor, filled with doubt, fear, and self-sabotage, then even the strongest seeds wither before they bear fruit. This is why two people may be given the same resources, the same chances, even the same amount of money, and yet one will turn it into wealth, while the other loses it quickly. The difference is not in the money itself. The difference is in the inner condition of the mind that holds or releases it. When poverty begins in the mind, it takes many forms. Sometimes it is the voice that says, "I cannot afford this," even when possibilities exist. Sometimes it is the habit of always choosing what is cheap rather than what is valuable. Sometimes it is the fear of losing what little you have that prevents you from taking the steps that could create more. Poverty of the mind is not about what you own, it is about what you believe you deserve, what you believe is possible, and how you choose to act from those beliefs. A person can be poor in money, but rich in the mind, and such a person will find ways to grow, to create, to attract, until eventually the outer wealth matches the inner wealth. At the same time, a person can be rich in money, but poor in the mind, and such a person will find ways to waste, to lose, to collapse, until eventually the outer wealth disappears to match the inner poverty. This is why lasting prosperity cannot be built on external possessions alone. It must be built first on a foundation of the inner state. The poverty of the mind often hides behind excuses. It says, "The world is against me." It says, "I was not born into the right family." It says, "Others are lucky, and I am not." These thoughts may sound like explanations, but they are cages. They prevent the person from seeing that within them exists the same potential that exists in every human being. The ability to choose differently, to think differently, to act differently. The wealthiest people in history often did not begin with riches. They began with nothing but an inner refusal to stay in the same place. They understood that the true poverty was not outside but inside, and by overcoming it within, they changed their outer condition. The mind can trap or the mind can liberate. If the mind constantly rehearses failures, constantly repeats the stories of lack, constantly looks at what is missing, it reinforces a vibration of scarcity. And this vibration attracts experiences that match it. A person begins to meet others who are also limited, opportunities that are also small, conditions that are also restrictive. This is not superstition. This is how the mind filters reality. What you believe to be true, you begin to see. What you repeatedly think, you unconsciously create. Poverty in the mind ensures poverty in the world. But when the mind is trained to think in possibilities, to focus on growth rather than limitation, to see abundance in places where others see nothing, everything shifts. The person begins to recognize opportunities that others overlook. They begin to connect with people who are on higher vibrations. They begin to take actions that feel uncomfortable but are necessary for growth. Slowly, the outer condition starts to change. It is not magic. It is alignment between the inner state and the outer experience. The tragedy is that many people wait for money to come first before they change their mindset. They say, "When I am rich, then I will think like a rich person." But the sequence is reversed. First, You must think like someone who is abundant, disciplined, confident, and worthy. Then the external resources begin to flow in ways that you are capable of sustaining. Without this shift, even when money arrives, it slips away because the old patterns of the mind recreate the same cycle. To recognize that poverty begins in the mind is to take responsibility. It means no longer blaming the outside world for everything. It means no longer waiting for others to fix your life. It means realizing that the first place to create change is within yourself, within your thoughts, your beliefs, your self-image. The outer world is always a mirror, and when the mirror shows you lack, it is reflecting the poverty that has taken root inside. This is why the path to true prosperity is not only about working harder, saving more, or chasing opportunities endlessly. It is about reprogramming the inner voice that says you are not enough. It is about refusing to accept the identity of poverty. It is about elevating the vibration of your thoughts so that your actions follow and eventually your destiny transforms. Poverty is not only material, it begins in the mind. Every color carries a vibration, and with that vibration comes a message that influences how the mind feels, how the body reacts, and how the spirit moves. Some colors expand you. They make you feel lighter, more open, more capable of imagining possibilities beyond the present moment. Other colors contract you. They create heaviness. They encourage you to repeat old patterns. They remind you of scarcity and fear. Without awareness, you may fill your surroundings and your clothing with colors that silently keep you tied to limitation, never realizing that you are living inside an environment that reinforces poverty. The subconscious mind is deeply sensitive to visual signals. Colors bypass logical reasoning and go directly into emotion. You do not need to think about why a color feels depressing or uplifting. Your body already knows. Imagine waking up in a room painted in dull, lifeless tones compared to waking up in a room filled with vibrant, energizing hues. The first environment whispers to you that life is heavy, that energy is low, that today will be just like yesterday. The second environment tells you there is possibility, freshness, and vitality waiting to be experienced. Neither room has spoken a word, yet each has shaped your mental state. This is how colors act as anchors. When a color anchors you to limitation, it is not about beauty or ugliness. It is about frequency. Some colors naturally resonate with scarcity, fear, and contraction. When you wear them daily, when you sit among them constantly, you are reinforcing those same vibrations inside yourself. They make you more hesitant, more cautious, more afraid to reach beyond what feels safe. And the more you repeat this exposure, the stronger the anchor becomes. A person may dream of abundance yet still clothe themselves in the vibration of lack. And the dream never materializes because the inner frequency is pulling in the opposite direction. Think of it like a ship anchored to the ocean floor. No matter how strong the wind blows, no matter how much energy the sails capture, the ship cannot move because the anchor is holding it still. In the same way, a person can work harder, learn new skills, even pursue opportunities, but if the colors in their environment are silently reinforcing poverty, consciousness, they remain tied to the same cycle. The anchor is not visible, but its weight is undeniable. Throughout history, cultures have understood this truth. Warriors painted their bodies in specific colors before battle because they knew certain shades invoked courage, while others invoked fear. Spiritual leaders wore particular robes because they knew those colors carried authority, purity, or wisdom. Farmers painted their tools and homes in tones that symbolized their fertility and prosperity. These were not random choices. They were acts of alignment. They knew that color is not decoration but vibration, and vibration influences destiny. In modern life, many people ignore this wisdom. They choose colors only for fashion, for trends, or because they are accustomed to them. They forget that these choices are not neutral. They forget that every time they wear a color, they are announcing a vibration to the world and to themselves. The wrong color repeated enough becomes an identity. It becomes part of how you see yourself, part of how others see you, and part of how life responds to you. If the color is one that anchors limitation, then the identity that grows from it is also limited. You may notice this in people who constantly surround themselves with muted, lifeless tones. Their energy feels drained, their words sound heavy, their vision for the future lacks brightness. This is not coincidence. The colors they live with have trained their subconscious to vibrate at the same frequency. It is like living under a cloud without ever realizing that the sun could shine. The anchor becomes invisible because it feels normal, and limitation becomes a habit. The power of color lies in its repetition. One moment of exposure may not change much, but daily exposure conditions the mind. A person who constantly wears a color of scarcity may begin to notice that they feel less confident asking for opportunities, less motivated to take risks, less deserving of abundance. Over time, this becomes their reality. The color has silently written part of their story. And unless awareness interrupts the cycles, the anchor keeps holding them down. When you understand this, you begin to look at your environment differently. You begin to question why you feel tired in certain rooms, why your mood shifts when you change your clothes, why you hesitate in moments where courage is needed. Often, it is not only the situation but the vibration you are carrying through color. Some colors give you the strength to expand, others tie you to limitations, and the choice is always present whether you realize it or not. Certain colors are not harmful because they are bad, but because they do not support your growth. They keep you comfortable in smallness, in repetition, in patterns that feel familiar but not empowering. They reinforce the story of lack, the vibration of fear, the energy of hesitation, and as long as you live within them, you are anchored to limitation, even if your mind is reaching for more. Human beings live most of their lives in patterns. From the moment the eyes open in the morning, routines take over. The same habits, the same thoughts, the same reactions unfold almost automatically. What most people call personality is often a collection of conditioned responses repeated over time. This conditioning is not always chosen consciously. It comes from family, culture, society, and the environments a person grows up in. Even colors, words, and symbols in daily life carry hidden messages that the mind absorbs without resistance. Over years, these messages turn into unquestioned truths. A person may believe they are making free choices, but in reality, they are following programs that were installed long ago. Unconscious conditioning acts like an invisible prison. It determines how you think about money, how you feel about success, how you see your own worth. If as a child you were surrounded by messages of scarcity, if you constantly heard that life is a struggle, that money is hard to earn, that abundance is for others but not for you, then those ideas settled deep inside. They became part of your subconscious identity. As an adult, you may speak of dreams, you may chase opportunities, but the hidden conditioning still pulls you back to the vibration of limitation. You earn money but feel guilty spending it. You see opportunities but hesitate to act. You want growth but unconsciously sabotage yourselves. The prison is not outside, it is the conditioning you carry inside. Awareness is the light that reveals these invisible chains. The moment you become aware of a pattern, you are no longer controlled by it in the same way. For example, imagine you discover that every time you think of money, you feel a knot of fear in your stomach. Without awareness, you assume this is natural, so you avoid financial decisions, you delay investments, you live in hesitation. But when awareness enters, you see the fear as conditioning, not as truth. You recognize that it came from repeated messages you absorbed, not from reality itself. This recognition creates space. Suddenly, there is a choice to continue obeying the old conditioning or step into a new response. Awareness transforms the relationship between stimulus and response. Normally, conditioning ensures that when a stimulus appears, the response is automatic. Someone criticizes you and you feel anger. A risk appears and you feel fear. An opportunity arises and you doubt yourself. But with awareness, the space between stimulus and response expands. You begin to notice the thought arising, you notice the feeling stirring, and in that moment of noticing, you are free to choose differently. This is how awareness breaks conditioning, not by erasing the old patterns immediately, but by introducing choice where before there was none. When it comes to limitation, unconscious conditioning is often reinforced by the environment. The colors in your surroundings, the language you hear daily, the people you spend time with, all of these act as reminders of your conditioned state. Without awareness, you sink into the same vibration without resistance. But when awareness sharpens, you begin to question, why does this color make me feel heavy? Why does this conversation drain my energy? Why does this environment make me feel smaller? The questions themselves are a sign that the conditioning is no longer invisible. You are beginning to see the hidden codes that have shaped your behavior. Awareness does not arrive as a dramatic event. Often it begins as a subtle shift. You pause before reacting. You observe your own thoughts instead of becoming them. You notice the effect that certain choices have on your energy. These small awakenings accumulate, and with each one, the old conditioning loses a little of its power. It is like pulling weeds from a garden. At first, the weeds seem endless, but with patience and persistence, the soil becomes clear. And in that clear soil, new seeds can be planted. The process of breaking unconscious conditioning requires honesty. It demands the courage to look within and admit that much of what you thought was you was actually borrowed programming. Many resist this because it shakes the foundation of identity. Yet, this is where true growth begins. When you are willing to see that your beliefs are not absolute truths, but conditioned patterns, you open the possibility of rewriting them. Through awareness, the colors that once anchored you lose their grip. Through awareness, the voices of scarcity that once felt like reality are recognized as echoes of the past. Through awareness, the repeated cycles that kept you poor reveal themselves as illusions that can be dissolved. The conditioning may still exist, but it no longer controls you blindly. It becomes visible, and visibility is the first step to freedom. This is why awareness is more powerful than any external strategy. Strategies built on unconscious conditioning only strengthen the prison. You may work harder, save more, learn new skills, but if the mind is still operating under old patterns, the outcome remains the same. But with awareness, every action you take carries a new vibration. You are no longer repeating cycles unconsciously, you are choosing consciously. And that single shift, seeing clearly instead of moving blindly, changes the entire trajectory of your life. Human beings are deeply influenced by their environment, often in ways they do not fully realize. The colors in the room, the arrangement of objects, the clothes on the body, the sounds in the background, each of these elements constantly sends signals to the subconscious mind. Over time, those signals shape moods, decisions, and even beliefs about what is possible. The outer world does not only reflect the inner world, it also reshapes it. By consciously changing what surrounds you, you begin to shift the way you think, feel, and act, and this process eventually transforms the core of who you are. Consider the simple act of cleaning a cluttered room. Before the space is cleared, the mind feels heavy, distracted, unable to focus. After the room is ordered, a sense of lightness appears, and suddenly the same mind feels capable of greater clarity. The outer change did not alter the mind's structures, but it influenced its state.